Good morning. Welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Robert McNeely with all of the breaking news happening in your America this Monday, June 30th. Thank you for being with us. Karoline Leavitt will hold a press briefing from the James S. Brady briefing room at the White House momentarily within the next hour, actually. And now good afternoon, high noon on the East Coast, 9 o'clock on the West Coast. The White House saying that there's time for summer holiday travel and that gas prices are coming down. So hit that road. If you watched our earlier broadcast with Matthew Alvarez, get on that Route 66. Check it out. It's a fun time. I've been on a few spots there myself throughout mostly Chicago and Arizona into California. Hopefully they will find a way to elect someone normal, unlike Governor Newsom, but I digress, as the lower gas prices are just in time for your summer holiday travel. Gas prices falling as millions of Americans hit the road for the holiday weekend. And this is even according to CNBC, that gas is the cheapest it's ever been. Inflation-adjusted gas prices are near the lowest levels we've seen in the last 20 years. And with rising incomes, Americans are actually spending far less of their income on energy than they have in quite some time. So that's good news for the American people, and it's felt across the nation. From Mississippi, if you're driving, you could be in for a pleasant surprise at the pump, or even in New York City, the Big Apple. It looks like gas prices are about to get cheaper. To Toledo, Ohio, summer gas prices are at a surprising 4-year low. And in Columbia, South Carolina, if you're planning to hit the road ahead of the 4th of July weekend, gas prices are currently the lowest they've been since 2021. And in Jacksonville, Florida, some good news for gas prices. They continue to fall ahead of the 4th of July holiday. And in Macon, Georgia, if you're planning to travel this weekend, gas prices in our area are down. They're the lowest they've been since 2021. The Arizona Republic reporting that Arizona motorists are seeing a relatively cheap summer at the gas pump. Despite recent conflicts abroad, oil prices have fluctuated since the start of the Israel-Iran war earlier this month. But gas prices have remained relatively steady across the nation, have largely declined in State 48 itself, a great nickname for the Grand Canyon State. Gas Buddy stating that gas prices to fall to the lowest July 4th level since 2021 as the Middle East tensions cool. And even the Clinton News Network stating that they're pretty low and they're trending lower. This would be the lowest on the 4th of July for gas since at least 2021, perhaps even since 2020 during COVID. So, of course, perhaps this is people who are able to spend money on these trips, and they could do that with gasoline swallowing up smaller and smaller chunks of the paycheck. And it continues with other outlets that have not necessarily been friendly to the Trump administration, saying that summer road trips appear to be safe from a big spike in gasoline prices. The last time cost for drivers was lower in late June of 2021. And the national average for a gallon of regular gasoline is $3.21. This is 23 cents cheaper than this time last year. So we have that happening. Reduced prices would be a boon for consumer during the warmer months when Americans generally drive more and opting to hit those road trips, as Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, highly encouraged that, including with his own family, to go and hit the road and see this great nation of ours from coast to coast. The low energy prices so far this year have already contributed to the economy's resilience and helped keep inflation in check. And according to NBC News, looking at gas prices that are the best in 4 years, this is so important for all those millions of people hitting the road to celebrate America's 249th birthday, and it will be 20 cents less than it was a year ago by their calculations. So hit the road, enjoy it, and mention to us where you're going. You can write in at feedback@rsbn.tv or even comment right now live from whatever social media platform you are using to tell us what is happening there. So we will look forward to Karoline Leavitt's press briefing in roughly 1 hour from now, as President Trump is celebrating countless successes from last weekend. And Friday was a big news day. You had all those Supreme Court rulings breaking them down. So the High Court has ruled that these injunctions are unconstitutional. To seek out lower district court judges or specific circuits that are seemingly more favorable to your outcome, it can't happen anymore with the Article 3 branch of government, the judiciary, usurping the executive office and authority of the president per Article 2. The High Court ruling that, and this will affect things like birthright citizenship, the question whether or not it has to be interpreted a certain way with immigration. Of course, we know that the 14th Amendment came about after the dealing with how do we have these children of slaves? Are they now citizens? And per the 14th Amendment, that came to be when our country was reunified after that awful conflict that, thank God, ended the scourge of slavery in this nation. So that question will then be able to be worked on legislatively and in the executive branch. So you're going to have that balance now. It won't be judges who are preventing these professionals from doing their work on a daily basis, and the High Court ruling on that. Also, you had a pro-life case in South Carolina where that government can now move to defund Planned Parenthood in the Palmetto State, including there are restrictions now on the viewing of pornography in Texas. There must be an age verification. So many High Court rulings coming out on Friday on top of the wonderful peace agreement between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and also the Republic of Rwanda coming together on peace terms. This has been the worst conflict in the world on a scale of death. 6 million plus have died from tribal guerrilla warfare. That's the most since World War II. So it was tragic. 30 years plus of fighting, all coming to an end because of the peace through strength vision of President Trump, the hard work of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and those great foreign ministers. So we look forward to the leaders of the Congo and the Rwanda coming over to visit with President Trump in July. So that was a wonderful Oval Office ceremony and also a State Department ceremony. In case you missed it, scrub back from Friday and go and watch some of that because it's very inspiring. Thank you to our sponsors on the right side of history, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. There's a COVID variant out there. There are storms in life literally happening and figuratively speaking. Scan the QR code now. Get 20% off. Code RSBN20 to get all these life-saving medications. So it's hydrochloroquine, ivermectin, mebendazole, also methylene blue, NAD+, and 200 essential medications in total with emergency medical kits and antibiotics that can save you and yours in a horrible situation. So imagine this for a quick moment. Your spouse has high blood pressure and runs out of medicine. It's a Sunday night. A big storm comes through. Your pharmacy down the street is now closed indefinitely. What are you going to do? You're going to go right here to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. They're doctors and nurses and pharmacists. They work around the clock, 24/7, and you can get that life-saving medication to your door when ordered online. It's a great, smart way to do this, and these are awesome patriots who are getting rid of the red tape, the bureaucracy, and if you don't have insurance, you don't have to sweat it. Don't hassle. You can still order with a prescription all of these great life-saving medications now through today. Today is the last day for RSBN20. Get this code, 20% off prescription medications that can literally save your life. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And once you have your health all figured out, you have your medicine cabinet stocked, and you have these great emergency medical kits that you could take on the road with you on your summer trips, now look into your savings and retirement with Colonial Metals Group. If you want to protect your IRA and 401k with gold, 100% tax-free, this is the group to do it with, in addition to their silver options. Tangible metals that have stood the test of time with great patriots like U.S. Attorney Judge Jeanine Pirro. She loves this organization, so scan the QR code there now, Colonial Metals Group, and you have to heed the warnings of financial experts like Warren Buffett. Where will you put your money when places like the Chinese Communist Party, they want to unleash an economic Pearl Harbor on the United States. We can't let that happen. We've seen what they've done to the Taiwanese and the war games they're playing against good people who simply want to be free and independent. So doing something like this can protect all of your assets while the world sees wild things happening. And with everything happening in the Middle East, thank God we have a president like President Trump who can destabilize and stop a nuclear program that threatened the entire world and then call for that ceasefire and bring peace through strength with our mighty military, stronger than the world has ever seen. Regardless of that, it's important to protect your retirement. And now, if you get that free gold guide at freegoldguide.com/RSBN, the no obligation 2025 gold guide, or scan the QR code now, you can receive up to $7,500 in free silver if you make any purchase through that gold guide. So scan it now, that QR code, or go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history, Colonial Metals Group, as we look live at the White House, the People's House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in your federal city. And I just cannot get over how wonderful those flagpoles are in the North Lawn and the South Lawn of the White House. Roughly 11 minutes after the top of the hour, Karoline Leavitt scheduled to hold a press briefing at the 1 o'clock hour on the East Coast. So stay tuned with us as we break down all of what's happened in your nation recently and what's happening as you plan to celebrate the 249th anniversary birthday of this great nation of ours. And yours truly will join Christina Loren in the beautiful Iowa at the Iowa State Fairgrounds for a celebration really to kick off America 250. And although we had the beautiful birthday for the military, for the Army, on Flag Day, celebrating that June 14th, that kind of kicked things off to begin with. This will really be that American birthday kickoff with your Commander-in-Chief, President Trump. So stay tuned this week for that. That will be Thursday, July 3rd. And isn't it nice to have the 4th of July on a weekend to enjoy on a Friday night celebration in America? I'm sure looking forward to it. Hope you are as well. We actually had the opportunity to speak with Justine Brooke Murray last week as well from Media Research Center. And she's breaking down so many of the topics and things happening in your America right now. A great organization really keeping the media on its toes to tell the truth. They'll point out where they are not going down the right path, where they are just putting out lies or making things up or pushing jihadi propaganda, as she puts it too, with the radical Islamic terrorism really on our minds because of what we've seen over the course of not only the last few weeks, but also since October 7th of 2023. She's been on the show on many occasions, and she puts out these great hysterical videos, so give her a follow. But please enjoy this video, recent interview we had with Justine Brooke Murray from MRC. And a special guest of Right Side Broadcasting Network, Justine Brooke Murray of MRC. Always wonderful to have you on the show. So much news in the last couple of weeks. President Trump's successes, the G7, to the 12-day war that President Trump granted that beautiful ceasefire after the very successful strikes last week. And of course, NATO. Just some of your thoughts on what's happening and how this America First agenda is really changing the landscape globally.
First, thank you so much for having me back. Second, only President Trump could and did stop what essentially looked like it was going to be World War III in 12 days. And you had the legacy media, particularly CNN, it seems like they're actually cheering on the side of Iran. They actually released, they peddled this leaked official document, basically making up claims, wishing and praying and hoping that President Trump's strikes were a failure. And it seems like they're putting American safety in jeopardy. CNN, the same outlets, the same American outlets that claim to have America's interests at heart, they're actually siding with the enemy. This might even be treason.
We had the exact same reporter from the Clinton News Network, in fact, to your point, Justine, writing that story years ago on the Russia hoax and perpetuating this so-called leaked item that we're now finding might have come from the United States Senate. And to your point there, When does treason come into play? Because it's extraordinary to see that American outlets seem to be against the well-being and the safety of our soldiers.
Exactly. And if there's a couple of senators or even one senator, how many people who are in our own government are working against us? We saw how many in the Biden administration, but now we're even seeing it here. People who are in Congress and the Senate who are trying to undermine President Trump and undermine this country.
And tell us about, are there any developments with the end of the 12-day war? I saw reports that there are some hostages that Iran's taking from within the country, I think trying to really crack down in their theocratic nightmare that, again, if you're not a Shia Muslim in Iran, it's death or the gallows, and maybe a mix of the two, especially the way they've been treating people in their prisons. But how do you think this will come to a head, and can we see any resolve in this? Because some seem to think that the millennial and Gen Z generations in Iran may want regime change and might be able to do that.
They certainly do. What a lot of Americans should realize is that the Iranian people, they are not their regime. So this is very much different than the Gazan population, which unfortunately most of them support Hamas. The Iranian people want their nation back. They want their heritage back. They're Persians. But you have this Islamic regime has been in place. But it's also a message on we do have to understand and remember how the Islamic regime got there in the first place. It was young Iranians who were turning against each other. And we're seeing that in America. We're seeing young students. We're seeing people my age cheer on Hamas, cheering on the people who chant death to America. They're the ones who are actually chanting death to America on our college campuses. So if anything, we should look at how Iran got to this point. And we should take it as a warning that this could happen to us if we don't also fight back against the people undermining us in our own country.
And we seem to have that stateside right now. The Democrat nominee for New York City mayor, a hardline socialist, and actually has harbored a lot of this anti-Semitic belief system, that it's really remarkable to think that this guy in his 30s is going around saying the things he's saying in the largest city in the United States of America. How can millennial conservatives and Gen Zers like yourself, who's so outspoken, inspire perhaps younger people who think like we do, maybe to run against these people who harbor these far left globalist and anti-Semitic beliefs?
The people who are truly at fault is the legacy media and how they've helped our university professors indoctrinate people my age. But the answer is always more speech. So the reason I work in new media or at the Media Research Center is to correct left-wing and pro-Iran, pro-Hamas media bias that they're actually cranking out these young little, what I like to call Islamo-Maoists on our campuses, and the ones who think that socialism is a good idea, the ones who basically helped turn Iran into what it is. People inside Iran, Iranians, young Iranians, were indoctrinated to believe that having an Islamic revolution is a good idea. So our job is to prevent that from happening here, but it starts with the propaganda war.
Justine Brooke Murray of the Media Research Center, always a pleasure to have you with your grit, your humor, and talking truth on a daily basis. Thanks for coming on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, as always.
Always a joy to have Justine Brooke Murray on from the Media Research Center and the great work they're doing to stay on top of all of this. And we know that so much is going on in Washington, D.C. right now, and the only way to really get up-to-date information on everything is sticking with us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and we're grateful for all of our viewership at this new live desk in this format that brings everything to you in real time. We don't cut off Karoline's press briefings. We don't cut off hearings in Congress. We take it live there so you can make up your mind. And then if you're busy during the day or in the evening, whenever it is, scrub back and watch it in its entirety so that you know what your government is up to. This is the most transparent administration in American history, and it's a joy to cover your 47th president, your 50th vice president, and the 119th Congress. The only way we could do that is thanks to great sponsors like PatriotAddictDeals.com. The Trump Force One airplane Claim your 20% off using code RSBN20. Right now, it's a limited edition Trump Force One airplane for 20% off. Patriot Addict deals. So these are quite unique because they're handcrafted, and it's a great replica of President Trump's private jet that is just relaxing right now, taking some R&R at PBI down in Palm Beach. Miles and miles traveled on the campaign trail from 2016 and 2024. 2020, of course, he had Air Force One that he was traveling on in the second attempt at the presidency. But this has become a staple for every household. I have mine on my desk, and I love it because it's fun. Whoever is invited over, and we have to have a meeting, you sit down right there and you see what side of history I'm on, the right side of history. So patriotactdeals.com, Trump Force One airplane, your go-to right now. Claim 20% off using code RSBN20. And Kalshi.com/RSBN, a great way to trade on the most important events and questions that are out there in your country and internationally. So they have a few questions like, will egg prices continue to go down? Will we see any spikes in inflation? Will the World Series champions, the Los Angeles Dodgers, repeat in their efforts to go back-to-back? We know it's happened in hockey recently with the Florida Panthers winning back-to-back Stanley Cups. You can scan that QR code there right now, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Trade on the most important events, Kalshi.com/RSBN. It is 12:21 on the East Coast, 9:21 on the West Coast, as we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing. And I have to tell you, this entire communications team and press team, they are outstanding with the funny things in culture and society and really harnessing social media to get the point across. We saw that with the Daddy's Home song from when President Trump came home from NATO, when the NATO Secretary General called him literally daddy, and you saw Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, who doesn't break character often, laughing as the International Press Corps asked questions regarding how do you feel about that statement, and this White House ran with it. Well, they just released another video similar to an office setting, teasing those who would be against this one big beautiful bill. Here it is for your viewing pleasure.
Did you vote today?
Yep. I got my sticker to prove it.
I'm going at lunch. I can't wait.
Only 10 my vote is for American Idol. And you know what I'm doing at lunch today? Updating my Facebook profile. You guys on Facebook? Didn't think so. Besides, one vote means diddly squat.
Whoa! You can't talk that smack and not get knocked back, Gary! Vote is your voice. That's all kinds of constitutional, baby! You better vote or that's all she wrote! Whoa! Sucker!
You gotta smile and have fun with this stuff at times, and this White House knows exactly how to do it. And I'm surprised those commercials haven't come back with Office Terry and tackling the people who are just not up to working that hard in their respective office. So that was a lot of humor there. But on the serious side, as Karoline Leavitt put out on at PressSec, is where you can find her on Truth Social. The One Big Beautiful Bill delivers the largest tax cut for working and middle-class Americans in history. It's bigger paychecks. Hardworking Americans and families will see an average increase in take-home pay of over $10,000 per year. Historic tax relief for workers, 15% tax cuts for Americans earning between $30,000 and $80,000 per year. No taxes on overtime or tips. Saves overtime and tipped workers nearly $2,000 annually. Also, historic tax breaks for seniors, introducing unprecedented financial relief for seniors, and Made in America tax breaks, interest deduction for loans on new American-made vehicles. Also, large standard deductions, keeping the double standard deduction used by 91% of taxpayers, ensuring taxpayers keep more of their hard-earned money on or with a simpler tax break. So Karoline really breaking that down. She also broke down last week the reason we had to address Iran and their nuclear capabilities. President Trump has been consistent on it for years, that they can't have the bomb. And although his living former predecessors who were in that office always said that, but they never really did anything about it. In fact, Obama and AutoPen decided to ransom our tax money and our security, our sovereignty, and send billions to Iran. So she addressed this very matter last week. Here's Karoline Leavitt speaking on the Iran issue.
The Iranian regime was weeks away from being able to produce a nuclear weapon that would threaten the entire world before President Trump took this decisive action on Saturday night to obliterate their nuclear capabilities. The contrast in leadership could not be more clear. Barack Obama and Joe Biden sent pallets of cash, American taxpayer dollars, in a failed attempt to buy the Iranian regime's compliance with a weak and ineffective deal. President Trump sent a fleet of American warplanes to destroy Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon. The United States and the entire world are safer because of this president's decisiveness. Despite agenda-driven leaks by the fake news media aimed at undermining this incredible accomplishment achieved by President Trump and our brave fighter pilots, there is broad consensus emerging already that Iran's nuclear capabilities were indeed destroyed. The United States, Israel, the United Nations, and even Iran all agree they can no longer build a nuclear weapon. So why did the president immediately turn to obliterating after the Iranian nuclear threat? Securing peace. Within 48 hours of the devastating strike, President Trump and his team brokered a historic ceasefire between Israel and Iran and officially ended the 12-day war. The Middle East is now shifting away from chaos and bloodshed and moving toward the beginning stages of a new era of peace and stability that President Trump has long called on them to achieve. This was unthinkable at this time last week, and this is what peace through strength looks like.
Karoline Leavitt, the GOAT of press secretaries, the greatest of all time. You see how the press and communications team at the White House is really delivering on the message of peace through strength and this president's agenda. And it's a masterclass on how do you represent someone and speak on someone's behalf, as she said, who is the greatest communicator for this White House. We did not see that in the prior administration. We had a press secretary who, although it probably was the most difficult situation because was it Joe Biden or was it the AutoPen authorizing certain things? I'm sure James Comer and congressional Republicans will get to the bottom of that, God willing, but we'll see what happens with all of that in the weeks and months of what's becoming more and more of a scandal from the last administration. And as I asked President Trump several months ago, what happens with all these AutoPen situations? Well, he said at the time, I'm sure it has to go to a legal forum, perhaps all the way up through the courts, because if you have someone signing on behalf of the president, it's illegal. So how many of those pardons stand? How many of those executive orders stand? And we know this from House Speaker Mike Johnson. When he went to meet with the president and he was bombarded with roughly 10 members of the AutoPen administration, including the former vice president. And then finally, Joe asked, hey, can everyone just go leave? I got to spend some time with my friend Mike here. And according to House Speaker Mike Johnson, the president, this is AutoPen, was not aware of what he had signed in regards to major executive orders and major deliveries on the energy industry and what actually ended up harming our pipelines here in the United States. He said, I didn't sign that, Mike. He said, Mr. President, yes, you did. We can go to your secretary right now and find this document. He goes, I know what I'm doing. And we all know what happens there, so I won't dive too much into that. But it's good to have an administration now that is working overtime for the American people, working hard to be transparent. And we saw it all of last week. President Trump with a surprise press conference last Friday morning, coming out there really to speak on the successes from the Supreme Court, to celebrate also with Rwanda and the DCR, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and everything that they've achieved in peace over the course of the last 30 years. They've had this horrible tribal warfare happening. The greatest loss of life since World War II, in fact. So it's a war that many of us never heard about because the American media was not quite interested in covering it. But those people now have a chance at peace, now have a chance at freedom, just like the Iranian people do, just like the Syrian people, and just like Israel and, God willing, Russia and Ukraine, an issue that President Trump is addressing. And let's be honest, if he had served in that second term and not auto-pen, and it would have been consecutive back-to-back, none of these conflicts would have happened. You would not have had October 7th of 2023. You would not have had Russia invading Ukraine, because what just happened with the invasion of Iran, our B-2 bombers were not detected. There were no surface-to-air missiles to come at them. There were no casualties on either side. It was the cleanest destabilizing of a nuclear facility in history. And something almost out of Top Gun Maverick or Hollywood, in fact, because the Israelis started off with getting those crucial sites and knocking out those caps in certain areas. And then America came in and really finished the job and provided that path for that ceasefire to end the 12-day war. So we pray for peace. In fact, we're called to it as Bible-believing Christians. And even those who don't believe, it's, I think, within our interest as a civilization to want peace, to work for peace. And this president is showing the way. And it was brought with glowing terms at NATO in the Netherlands, with the NATO Secretary General saying, this president is a strong leader. He wants peace, but he's unafraid to use appropriate military action when a threat to the world like Iran's nuclear facilities were doing just that. So President Trump watching that immensely. 5% GDP across the board, all member nations, with the exception of Spain, now agreeing to that in that 24-hour trip by President Trump in the Netherlands, a great success at NATO. And this is all on the heels of the G7 summit that he had to leave early from Alberta, Canada, back to Washington, D.C. to deal with the Iranian threat. And President Trump getting much done there as well, with even a new trade deal with UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer. So lots happening in the world, lots happening in the news, and all of these crucial votes that went in the early morning hours, middle of the night, over the weekend. The one big beautiful bill seems poised to, in one way or another, get across the finish line onto the desk for President Trump to sign into law. Now, it might not be by the 4th of July as he had wanted, but we'll see what happens here as the senators are now working really overtime for this. And breaking news, Senator Thom Tillis, who has really been in many ways a thorn in the side of President Trump, legislatively speaking, will not be seeking a third term. He will not be seeking re-election from the beautiful state of North Carolina, the Tar Heel state. So we'll see who gets interested in running there, and keep you abreast of 2026 as well, because you have 8 Republicans in the House who are now seeking higher office as well. So what does that mean for majorities? Because these are the slimmest majorities we've seen in a very long time. And right now the Republicans in the House hold that 220 to 212 over the Democrats. And this one big beautiful bill was only passed with reconciliation 215 to 214. So Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, doing an extraordinary job really whipping up those votes, and House leadership working overtime to make so many of these good things happen for you, the American people, which has been a bill which would be an overwhelming success for all of America. So we'll stay on that, watch all of those things for you. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're breaking down all of the breaking news from over the weekend, the last few days in D.C. and outside of the Beltway, as we expect White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing at the top of the hour. Stick with us here. I'm Robert McNeely. It's Right Side Broadcasting Network Live.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. I'm Robert McNeely. Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, the GOAT of White House press secretaries, to hold a press briefing at the top of the hour. So stick with us as we're going through all the recent news and President Trump's successes inside and outside of the Beltway. From the White House, this was a big win. The Supreme Court ends excessive nationwide injunctions. Today's decision restores the proper separation of powers between the branches of government. Ending nationwide injunctions is a tremendous victory for the American people and the rule of law. This was a quote directly from White House counsel David Warrington. No longer can rogue activist judges abuse their authority to dictate the executive powers of the President of the United States. This is what the Supreme Court ruled on Friday. It's a massive victory for the Constitution, the rule of law, and the presidency itself. Since the moment President Trump took office, low-level activist judges have been exploiting their positions to kneecap the agenda on which he was overwhelmingly elected. In fact, of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against President Trump, these executive actions in his second term, 35 of them came from 5 far-left jurisdictions: California, Maryland, Massachusetts, Washington, and the District of Columbia. Now, the Trump administration can promptly proceed with critical action to save the country, like ending birthright citizenship, ceasing sanctuary city funding, and suspending refugee resettlement, in addition to freezing unnecessary funding, stopping taxpayers from funding transgender surgeries, and much, much more. Now, the Supreme Court's common sense decision was rightly hailed as a huge victory. President Trump stating that the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law, striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months, we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy. Attorney General Pam Bondi stating Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. A great Attorney General that we have there, Pam Bondi, doing an extraordinary job. Even legal affairs correspondents from the legacy media stating that this is a big win for President Trump because he has been rallying against these so-called nationwide injunctions. the justices are agreeing with Trump and limiting this power that judges have to block a policy for the entire country. We also have Attorney Jonathan Turley, who is someone who has actually argued for bigamy in front of the high court. He's not someone who's conservative. He's someone actually a traditional liberal, but someone who deeply believes in constitutional authority and principles. Mr. Turley stating that, I think that the Trump administration has a very good reason to celebrate. These district court judges have really tied down the administration. And we read it last week. We went through the Federalist Papers, specifically number 80, and Alexander Hamilton stating that Article 3 intended, although these are co-equal branches of government, so Article 1, legislative, Article 2, the executive, Article 3, the judiciary. The judiciary was meant to be the weakest in the sense that it's deciding between whether things are constitutional and unconstitutional. It should not be usurping the authority of the executive office of the President of the United States. It's been made very clear by White House counsel and by the Attorney General, this team of attorneys that has been just extraordinary. And Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, perhaps everyone's favorite senator with his jokes, but also his ability to get points across very well. Anybody who knows a law book from an L.L. Bean catalog knows that federal judges just made up this concept of universal injunctions. They just made it up because they don't agree with what a president or Congress has done. And so the demon rats now, they actually have to go win elections. They can't have a super legislature within the court system anymore, thanks to the people that President Trump appointed in his first term. And they have done really an extraordinary job with conservative jurisprudence, not conservative political stances. It's simply having a jurisprudence that believes in original intent, not the fact that this Constitution of ours is somehow a living document that can be changed willy-nilly. No. What's written is written, and it should be adhered to. And good to see constitutional governance in America once again. Thank you to our sponsors on the right side of history. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. There is a new COVID variant out, and when you're on the road enjoying the summertime that is 2025 because gas prices have gone down so much, it's good to have your easy-to-pack emergency medical kits. So right now, through today, in fact, June 30th, hurry, get this online. Code RSBN20, 20% off. Scan the QR code there at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. This great team of doctors, nurses, pharmacists, they all want you to have life-saving medication, whether it's ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, methylene blue, mebendazole, NAD+, over 200 essential medications to stock your medicine cabinet and antibiotics that could save your life even on the road. So go there today and get what you need, because you have sometimes insurance companies that actually own pharmacies down the street from you. Talk about a conflict of interest. This group of doctors, pharmacists, nurses, they want you to have life-saving medication. You need a prescription, but if you don't have insurance, don't worry about it. No hassle, no red tape. They're cutting through the bureaucracy and helping you save your life and your loved ones. So a great group of people. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Order today. Scan that QR code now. 20% off your entire order. RSBN20. Pay less for prescription medications. This is all on the heels of President Trump signing that executive order to bring down the scale and the cost of prescription meds in America and the right to try. So be with a great patriotic group that's there for us. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And when you have your health figured out, why not look into savings, retirement with tangible metals like gold and silver with Colonial Metals Group. They are the best in the business. Scan the QR code there now or go to freegoldguy.com/RSBN. So protect your IRA, your 401k with gold, 100% tax-free. That's a great deal right there, because we know the Chinese Communist Party, they want an economic Pearl Harbor on the United States. And we've seen what they've done to our friends in Taiwan who help trade crucial minerals and chips that go into little devices you carry around on your person. So go to Colonial Metals Group right now, because regardless of who's in charge, and thank God we have President Trump in the White House, always smart to look over savings and retirement, the things you've worked so hard for. And great people like U.S. Attorney Judge Jeanine Pirro in the D.C. District. She is a huge fan of this group, and so are we. Colonial Metals Group, if you order through the no obligation free gold guide at freegoldguide.com/RSBN today, you can win up to $7,500 worth of silver on the house. So I would not delay. I'd reach out today. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Colonial Metals Group, thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And there you see the podium. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt will hold a press briefing in the James S. Brady briefing room. Roughly 12:45. It will be scheduled for 1 o'clock. We will look forward to bringing you there live to cover everything inside and outside of the Beltway. Now, the White House releasing the myth versus fact on the one big, beautiful bill, while Senate Democrats spend the day launching desperate attacks on the one big, beautiful bill in a last-ditch effort to block the president's agenda. It speaks for itself. This bill is a historic tax relief for the hardworking American people, and a vote against it is a vote for the largest tax hike in American history. Plain and simple. No amount of spin, noise, or misinformation will change that simple fact. And while they peddle fear, we will give you the facts. So here are some myths and facts about the one big, beautiful bill. This is just a tax break for billionaires. You're hearing that from the far left. Now, the one big, beautiful bill delivers the largest middle and working class tax cut in United States history. The president's legislation will put more than $10,000 a year back in the pockets of typical hardworking families. This is the most pro-growth, pro-worker, pro-family legislation ever created. The one big, beautiful bill takes from the poor to give to the rich. Low-income workers actually stand the chance to receive the largest percentage reduction in their tax liability. The one big, beautiful bill delivers the largest tax cut in history for working and middle-class Americans. So they continue on with their fear-mongering. One big, beautiful bill makes life more unaffordable, according to the demon rats, but nothing can be further from the truth. The bill delivers bigger paychecks, expanding take-home pay by over $10,000 per year for a typical American family of four. So tax relief coming, and the fact that you can keep more of that hard-earned money that you're going out there for and working on a daily basis to provide for the ones you love. It hurts low-income families. You got to love that with the demon rat left. They always claim that the poor will be hurt by a Republican agenda, especially with the positive populism being pushed by the Trump administration and this newfound Republican alliance. But the truth is, the one big, beautiful bill is the most pro-family legislation ever crafted. It will deliver bigger paychecks, giving more than a $10,000 boost annually to everyday families. We are also expanding opportunity zones, expanding child care access, increasing the child tax credit, and creating newborn savings accounts, which is so exciting in this time to actually put forth pro-family agendas, because we're actually, as large of a nation as we are, our birth rate is down. We should be somewhere around the 2.1 mark, if not higher than that. Right now in America, every family is having an average of 1.6 children when you break down the math. We need to have more children in this country in order for this civilization to survive. And a plan like this will start providing that, so people are really on their feet once they graduate high school, graduate college, and can go out and attack those dreams and bring those goals back home in America. Now, this is just a handout to corporations. That's another good one that you hear from the demon rat left. And as Secretary Kennedy put it out during his confirmation hearings with Bernie Sanders of Vermont, crazy Bernie Sanders, Bobby Kennedy couldn't take much more of the accusation, so he simply said, who's funding your campaigns? Oh, is it Big Pharma? Is it these big corporate entities? And of course, Senator Sanders said, hey, we're not going there. We're not going there. He did his big thing. And I enjoyed that moment. And good on RFK Jr. to push back. But the truth about this is that the one big beautiful bill drives a blue collar boom with tax relief for workers, support for small businesses, and investments in American manufacturing. The OBBB, as it's short for the one big beautiful bill, delivers the largest middle and working class tax cuts in American history. But then they have to go on with more lies and myths that it leaves American workers behind somehow. The truth is, this is the most pro-American worker bill in American history. It boosts pay for millions, and with no tax on tips for overtime, those working hourly and service jobs receive additional tax relief. Oh, then you have to go into this hurts small businesses. Another myth, because the OBBB will make the Trump tax cuts permanent, including the small business deduction, helping Main Street grow and hire. Failure to pass this legislation would result in a $4 trillion tax hike. So you have to think about that. Those who are against this bill will see a massive tax hike going up by over 68% when against the GDP. Something to think about when they go back home to their districts to explain why or why not in voting for this extraordinary legislation. The one big beautiful bill kicks American families off of Medicaid. That's another myth. The president has said this numerous times. There will be no cuts to Medicaid. The one big beautiful bill protects and strengthens Medicaid for those who rely on it. Pregnant women, children, seniors, people with disabilities, and low-income families, while eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. And the OBBB removes illegal aliens, enforces work requirements, and protects Medicaid for the truly vulnerable. If you watched the first broadcast today, you know how this administration is working overtime to protect the most vulnerable. And Dr. Mehmet Oz leading the charge there with many agencies today, including the Department of Justice and Health and Human Services, to crack down on these criminal enterprises taking advantage of the most vulnerable. Those at the beginning of their life, towards the twilight of their life, and those who are truly dependent upon these programs. It skyrockets our national debt, and it harms those who are in need of this money. So thank you to an administration that's actually fighting for you on a daily basis. Amazing to watch all of that there, as we have a new sponsor here on the right side of history, the Resilience Medical Club. This is an affordable virtual healthcare for only $47.99 per month. So you have no copays, no deductibles. Scan the QR code today for no hassle, just care. And no copays. That's kind of nice, because sometimes it can be a surprise. Even you're guaranteed it with that little piece of plastic that is your health insurance card, and then sometimes the bill comes back, and why is it so much? So join today. Call today, don't delay, 888-788-7630. Just $47.99 per month for up to 7 family members. Again, no copays, no claims, no contracts, no applications. Everyone is accepted. One membership covers up to 7 members of the family, and a primary care, urgent care, mental health services, weight health programs, also some prescription benefits here. Access to over 1,000 commonly prescribed medications with no copays and free delivery right to your door. Hassle-free, easy-to-use service, no unexpected costly surprises, and trusted by over 50,000 members nationwide. So again, call today. Resilience Medical Club, affordable health care in this crazy world that we live in. Join today, 888-788-7630, resilienceMedicalClub.com. Scan that QR code right now. And thank you to one of our best sponsors of all time, mypillow.com/RSBN. Mike Lindell, the man, the myth, the legend, the defender of free speech, of election integrity, and the purveyor of the Constitution and all things good, a good godly man, a good family man, free with any purchase, an exclusive special. You know how he gets those out there. President Trump said he is the master marketer. With all things are possible. The multi-use MyPillow 2.0, a $40 value. Think about this right now. MyPillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Don't delay. 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and RSBN by shopping now at MyPillow.com/RSBN. Thank you to Mike Lindell. All made in America in the beautiful state of Minnesota. Maybe he'll run for governor. I know I talk about that a lot, but it would be so good to see in one of the most lovely places in all of America. We are waiting for White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing in a few minutes here, give or take. So we will take you there live as I'm running through all of the demon rat myths about the One Big Beautiful Bill. They're claiming it will cut Medicare, but the White House has put out the fact that Medicare has not been touched in this bill. Absolutely nothing in the bill reduces spending on Medicare benefits. This legislation does not make a single cut to welfare programs. It only safeguards and protects these programs for all eligible Americans. And then this might be my favorite of the myths. The One Big Beautiful Bill will close rural hospitals. The fear-mongering never ends on the far left, and it's unequivocally false. The rural hospitals comprise just 7% of hospital spending on Medicaid, illustrating that they have not benefited from the massive increase in waste, fraud, and abuse under the Biden administration. By strengthening Medicaid, we are making more resources available for vulnerable populations and safety net providers like rural hospitals. So we are expanding this protection, providing targeted funds to rural care, and giving states flexibility to support local providers. And here's the granddaddy of them all, of all the myths that are out there from the demon rat left. People will die from this legislation. Millions will be kicked off of their health care. It's so irresponsible to even peddle that and to even seriously come back to your district, even if there's a disagreement in legislation. Why would you attempt to create that? It's only to be reelected. It's only to cause chaos. And we know, as Rambo Deadfish Emanuel, the former ambassador to Japan, former mayor of Chicago, he failed at that job. And now someone who's considering running for president of the United States, it's always entertaining, said never ever let a good crisis go to waste. We see that playbook when he was a congressman. It's still being enacted with the far left demon rats. But the truth is, this is the one most egregious, deranged attacks from the left, peddling fear over the facts. The One Big Beautiful Bill protects eligible Americans on federal welfare, including Medicaid. By strengthening the integrity of Medicaid and by eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, its resources can be refocused on providing better care and results for this program, designating to serve women, pregnant women, children, people with disabilities, low-income seniors, and other vulnerable low-income families. And then they go on. The One Big Beautiful Bill will only hurt those with disabilities. But the truth is that the OBBB protects and strengthens Medicaid for Americans with disabilities. So rest assured, those with disabilities receiving Medicaid will receive no loss or change in their coverage. Full stop. Here's another one. This punishes vulnerable Americans with work requirements to receive their benefits. It's not true. The 20-hour weekly work requirement applies only to able-bodied adults without young children and promotes dignity, stability, and better health outcomes for families. So the OBBB restores the dignity of work with historically bipartisan work requirements for able-bodied American workers. We're implementing common sense Clinton-era work volunteer education or training requirements with broad bipartisan support. And that's one of my favorite aspects of the bill, is that Bill Clinton's time in office, they actually did welfare reform. He actually said, if you're able-bodied, you have to work in this country. And with illegal immigration, we are a nation of immigrants. We're also a nation of laws, to quote the 42nd president during the 1995 State of the Union. Proof is in the pudding. If you like what you see here on RSBN and our live desk at the 1 o'clock hour, awaiting Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing, why not donate to this great organization at rsbnetwork.com/donate. You can also text RSBN to now a new number. It's a long form of 855-575-7888. That's 855-575-7888. If it's $2, $20, $200, $2,000, whatever it might be, heck, $20,000. Can we get the auctioneer in the house? We would be very honored to have those dollars to continue this mission, this vision that Joe Seals had a decade ago after President Trump came down the golden escalator. And Joe saw the fact that, wait, the legacy media is actually saying people are not going to these rallies. Nothing could be further from the truth. So we have to go cover these things and then talk to you, the American people, and why you were inspired to get involved in Make America Great Again. It's now led to this moment, a live desk where we bring you unbridled access to your government, your 47th president, your 50th vice president, your 119th Congress, and on Thursday, another rally to celebrate our great birthday with yours truly. And Christina Loren will be on the road with me. And we look forward to talking to you, the American people, and celebrating 249 years of this great country, and the last decade especially of this positive populist movement that has changed the face of American politics. So rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 855-575-7888. Thank you for those dollars, and thank you for supporting us on the right side of history. We are breaking down all of the rumors and the false myths and the game plan of the demon rats, which seems to be throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, but it ends up falling down to the ground. You waste a meal, and then the Republican MAGA movement comes in and cleans it up. It's amazing to watch, but we've seen so much success over the course of the last 5+ months of this administration. But regardless, they will throw out falsehoods about this one big beautiful bill, like there's no fraud in Medicaid. Republicans are just taking coverage away from vulnerable populations. Oh, there they go again. As President Reagan put it to President Carter, there you go again. But in the last 10 years, CMS admitted that improper payments for Medicaid have exceeded $500 billion. In just this past year alone, taxpayers spent $56 billion on benefits for able-bodied adults abusing the system, and over 1 million illegal aliens are receiving free health care on the backs of taxpayers. The one big beautiful bill removes illegal aliens, enacts work requirements for able-bodied adults, and protects Medicaid for the truly vulnerable. Well, they also continue with the SNAP work requirements are unnecessary. That's what they're saying, although we know from New York to Illinois to California, some other states as well, this is a big issue. Only 28% of able-bodied adults on SNAP work, SNAP. The One Big Beautiful Bill promotes work, responsibility, and restores SNAP to serve the truly needy. SNAP enrollments remains even high in a strong economy, including millions of able-bodied adults who could work. In fact, almost 3/4 of able-bodied adults without dependence on SNAP have earned no income. The mission of the program has failed. SNAP was intended to be temporary help for those who encounter tough times. We are strengthening this program to serve those who are in most need. Now, here we go again with illegal aliens. They don't get federal benefits. That's what the far left is claiming, that illegal aliens who have come into this country breaking the law do not receive federal benefits. But the truth is, illegals burden taxpayers with billions in costs for free health care and welfare benefits. The One Big Beautiful Bill ends Medicaid and SNAP fraud and ensures these programs serve only eligible Americans. And this is the same with other countries. They have strong borders and they take care of their populations. And what's beautiful about this country, we want this. Legal immigration. We bring you stories of legal immigrants like our ancestors who came here the right way, who came here in a time when it actually was probably harder to get in through Ellis Island. And many were turned around for various reasons. But illegal immigration has been incentivized by both Republicans and Democrats over the last half century in Washington, D.C. No one wanted to handle the problem, kick the can down the road so they could get reelected. And look where we're at. Look at all the crime, but President Trump cleaning it up swiftly with his cabinet and with his team. But the demon rats don't stop there with the myths. The One Big Beautiful Bill doesn't actually end taxes on Social Security. That's a good one. Now, the One Big Beautiful Bill delivers historic tax relief to seniors with a new tax deduction that, combined with over deductions or other deductions, ensures the average Social Security beneficiary will pay zero taxes in Social Security. In fact, the One Big Beautiful Bill reduces deficits by roughly $2 trillion by increasing economic growth and cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse across government programs at an unprecedented pace and an unprecedented rate. This legislation delivers historic levels of mandatory savings. President Trump's pro-growth economic formula will reduce the deficit, increase wages, deliver American jobs, and drive down the cost of living. Oh, wait. But the Congressional Budget Office says, no, we'll stop you right there, demon rats, because that partisan organization, their budget office has a terrible record with its predictions. In fact, dating back to the original tax cuts put in by President Trump in 2017 in the first term, they have not earned the attention the media gives it. The CBO misreads the economic consequences of not extending the Trump tax cuts. The One Big Beautiful Bill delivers real savings that will unleash our economy and prevent the largest tax hike in history, resulting in historic prosperity while lowering the debt burden for each and every American. But the demon rats continue. There's too much pork in this bill. There's no pork in the bill. Every single provision in the One Big Beautiful Bill, and it is a campaign promise, the American people elected with those 20 promises from the Trump campaign that was adopted in July of 2024 by the Republican National Committee in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at their convention. The only new spending in the bill is to secure the homeland of the United States and save American sovereignty, which is fully paid for by increased visa fees on foreigners. Now, they also continue with all of this that they won't strengthen national security as a result of this bill, but the One Big Beautiful Bill delivers on President Trump's Peace Through Strength agenda by funding the Golden Dome missile defense system and modernizing our military to prioritize lethality and readiness. It fully equips our warfighters with the resources they need while modernizing and revolutionizing our equipment and technology. Now, they'll also continue with this. This is actually one of the funnier ones because remember AutoPen? He opened up that Russian pipeline to come into Germany. And that was always interesting because the Germans were complaining about their own sovereignty and Russia having influence in the region, yet they were dependent upon their foreign oil. At the same time, the Keystone XL pipeline was shut down by Otto and his administration for environmental reasons. But then you had the communist Prime Minister of Canada at the time, Justin Trudeau, who said, "Sir, please reopen this. This is good for Canadian and American jobs." We know what happened there. But this great myth, the One Big Beautiful Bill helps big oil and locks up U.S. energy resources. Quite the opposite. It unleashes American energy, refills strategic petroleum reserves, and repeals the Green New Scam. The One Big Beautiful Bill unleashes clean, American-made energy and will reduce the cost of living for Americans nationwide. And then they go on to say that manufacturing will go overseas, according to the Demon Rats. The One Big Beautiful Bill delivers 100% expensing for new domestic factories, revitalizes opportunity zones, brought to you by Senator Tim Scott and the first term agenda of President Trump, incentivizing companies to keep jobs in America. And they continue with lies about SNAP, with lies about rural America. They're saying that Republicans are shutting Democrats out of the legislative process. It's a nonpartisan bill. There's victories across the board for unions. You see the UAWs endorse this too. Border Patrol and law enforcement unions, as well as small businesses, even big businesses and corporate entities. You have CEOs, CFOs coming out endorsing this One Big Beautiful Bill because it streamlines the size and scope of the federal government. As President Trump or President Reagan mentioned years ago, the closest thing to eternal life on earth, it's a government program. And this administration's changing all that. And you can change how your skin glows through a great sponsor of ours right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, angelpaste.com. Experience the miracle today, the vitamin B infused non-GMO miracle cream, the original. But visit angelpaste.com for their orange option. It's vitamin C infused, non-GMO, no chemicals. It's a great option to keep you healthy all throughout the year. Also, for especially this time of year with all the mosquitoes out there, as you get ready to celebrate your barbecues and the 4th of July, the birthday of America, the facial spray that will help keep your skin glowing, but also the natural mosquito repellent, much needed as you get out there to enjoy time with family and friends this week and this weekend. Christian-owned, they hire veterans out of the great state of Texas, the Lone Star State. It's a beautiful place off of the Gulf of America, and it's located in the Houston Metroplex in Spring, Texas, a beautiful town. Angelpaste.com, thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And it is about 1:12 Eastern. We are awaiting White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt to give a press briefing in the James S. Brady briefing room, a packed house today, as the Demon Rats continue to push out falsehoods and myths on this One Big Beautiful Bill, saying that there's a border package not necessary since President Trump has secured the border. Well, it's funny because they actually admit that now, that he's secured the border. But as this bill provides the final funding needed, as Tom Homan put it just last week in the event for the One Big Beautiful Bill in the East Room, we must ensure that the invasion we witnessed as a nation under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris never, ever happens again. The One Big Beautiful Bill ensures investment, historic investment, in fact, of our border security by permanently securing our border and protecting our homeland by finishing the border wall, hiring 10,000 new ICE officers, and funding efforts to stop the flow of fentanyl. So this bill, in one form or another, must pass. And we know that President Trump actually had a shout out on Truth Social regarding what took place with the parliamentarian and his removal of the 2A specialties in the bill, something that this individual really should not have power over. But he put out just yesterday, great Congressman Greg Stube, he's from Sarasota, Florida, is 100% correct. An unelected Senate staffer, the parliamentarian, should not be allowed to hurt the Republican bill, wants many fantastic things out. No. That was President Trump, and he signed it DJT, so we know that came directly from him. But as we saw on the weekend shows, sending the One Big Beautiful Bill to President Trump's desk is a priority for most in the Republican conference. And just yesterday, members of Congress joined President Trump on Sunday shows to discuss the overwhelmingly positive impacts of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which will deliver unprecedented tax relief, generational welfare reform, and historic spending cuts for the American people. You might have missed this. President Trump stating that we're cutting $1.7 trillion and and we're going to have growth like we've never had before. He also stated this takes care of the border. There's also no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen actually visited not a very friendly show just yesterday, stating that this cuts spending. It's the largest deficit cut by any Congress ever in American history. It makes tax cuts permanent, which instead of taxes going up January 1st by $4 trillion, it actually restores the tax cuts, and the average household of four is going to bring home that additional $10,000 or more per year. What we're doing is cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse out of the Medicaid system and making sure it's for the people it was originally intended for. And Senator Jim Banks of Indiana stating that this is the biggest spending cut in American history. $1.6 trillion in this spending cut, getting rid of the Green New Deal scams from the Auto Pen administration. It's the biggest tax cut in American history for working class families. Everyone in my family is blue collar. So Senator Banks speaking. They're working class. They're all going to get socked by another $2,000 on average every year. They already tell me they can't keep up right now. And the Democrats want them to pay even more into the system. Democrats are focused on screwing the working class with higher taxes. But President Trump and Republicans are serious about cutting taxes on the people who need it the most. Senator Katie Britt of the great state of Alabama, she was on State of the Union stating, we're going to make sure that hardworking people keep more of their money. This is a must for this Republican agenda. We're going to make sure that we have more secure borders, and not just now, but for generations to come. We're going to make sure that we have a strong national defense so that our war fighter is the best trained, equipped, and ready across the planet. We're going to unleash American energy. We want to make sure that these programs are available for the people that need them the most and who need to make sure that people are working know that we see them and they have an American dream to achieve. And then we can help provide that opportunity by getting government out of the way. That's what this bill does. And the reforms in the bill are necessary, and we're going to deliver on actual solutions to the American people. This bill does no tax on tips. It does no tax on overtime. Real hardworking Americans are going to see results from this. So that's just three comments from three extraordinary senators from Oklahoma, Indiana, and Alabama, working hard in these hours now, crossing those thresholds to get this bill on President Trump's desk. Thank you to our sponsors on the right side of history. Patriot Attic Deals has the one big, beautiful Trump Force One airplane, that great replica that you can have in your MAGA man cave or on your desk, ready to go to showcase just your belief system and owning an iconic replica in American history of this beautiful plane. PatriotAtticDeals.com. Claim your 20% off using code RSBN20 right now. I have one myself. When I got mine, which was one of 100, it took about 4 months to get these back stocked with PatriotAtticDeals.com because they're all handcrafted. It's an amazing piece of art and really lovely on your coffee table or on your MAGA desk. So PatriotAtticDeals.com. Get your limited edition Trump Force One airplane now, 20% off, RSBN 20. Be sure to visit today as we await White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt to take the podium moments from now to talk on everything inside the White House, outside of the White House, and the legislative agenda of this president, the big elephant in the room, the one big beautiful bill that had amazing support in the House, but only from one party. It was from the Republican caucus that got it through in reconciliation, 215 to 214, really an enormous feat considering that it's such a narrow leadership mantle right now that House Speaker Mike Johnson has, and his job is to go out there, travel, fundraise, and get people reelected because 8 of these House Republicans are resigning to run for higher office, either in their home state or to try to get to the other chamber in the United States Senate in Congress. So you have a situation where it's 220 Republicans, 212 Democrats, 3 vacant right now due to the untimely passings of 3 Democrat colleagues, and our thoughts and prayers with their family members. Those seats will be filled later on this year in special elections. So you have right there the narrowest of narrow majorities, and something that really has to be fought for. So don't take it for granted as you get involved in 2026 and this next cycle that somehow Republicans have to stand on their achievements, stand on the promises that President Trump has been delivering to the American people, but he will not be on the ballot. So how does the Republican Party continue that MAGA positive populism in order to achieve for the American people and go to them and say, hey, I actually voted for this legislation to streamline the size and scope of government, to bring it down and to bring you prosperity and to secure our borders and to work hard for not only the CEO and the CFO so they can hire more people, but also the union worker, especially the UAW that is really cheering on the success of the factories, the distributors that are all here in America, whether it's Toyota or Hyundai. We're seeing that in the great state of Louisiana, all through Georgia as well, with new plants being built. But what about Detroit? Because we know that the living predecessors of President Trump defunded Detroit. They bankrolled Beijing. And the auto pen himself, we'll toss it there now live to Karoline Leavitt at the White House.
Good. It's good to see you back here. We have another busy week. On a scheduling note, tomorrow, President Trump will travel to the great state of Florida to attend the opening of a new illegal alien detention center located at Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport alongside Secretary Kristi Noem, Governor Ron DeSantis, Congressman Byron Donalds, and other state and local leaders. We hope to see many of you there. The facility is in the heart of the Everglades and will be informally known as Alligator Alcatraz. There is only one road leading in, and the only way out is a one-way flight. It is isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. The facility will have up to 5,000 beds to house, process, and deport criminal illegal aliens. This is an efficient and low-cost way to help carry out the largest mass deportation campaign in American history. We are truly coming off a historic week of President Trump racking up win after win on behalf of the American people. President Trump restored peace through strength and acted decisively as commander-in-chief to obliterate the immediate threat of the Iranian regime's nuclear capabilities and then brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, which continues to hold. Then, the president traveled to the Netherlands and achieved a monumental win for the United States and the NATO alliance by getting our allies to dedicate 5% of their GDPs to military spending. As a result of President Trump unleashing American energy dominance, summer gas prices are at the lowest they have been in 4 years, heading into the July 4th week. And with the incoming Trump economic boom, the stock market continues to roar back, with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both hitting record highs. And on this point of an economic boom, I bring to you original correspondence from the President of the United States to our Fed Chair, Jerome Powell. As the President has consistently stated, the American economy is booming. And there were so many economic analysts who said that this president's policies would drive our economy down, when in fact we have seen the opposite. We've seen a massive deregulation campaign take place. We've seen inflation completely diminished from where it was under the reckless spending and the bad policies of the previous incompetent administration. I would remind the Fed chair, and I would remind the entire world, that this is a president who was a businessman first, and he knows what he is doing. He has a proven economic formula that worked in his first term as president, and it is working again. The one problem that remains is high interest rates for the American people. The American people want to borrow money cheaply, and they should be able to do that. But unfortunately, we have interest rates that are still too high. So the president sent this note to the Fed chair today. And if you look at this chart, this is a chart of all of the interest rates of many countries throughout the world. At the top is Switzerland. They're only paying 1/4 for interest rates. Cambodia, Japan, Denmark, Thailand, Botswana, Barbados, Taiwan, Bulgaria, Cuba, Sweden, Morocco, Cabo Verde, South Korea, Algeria, Canada, Albania, Libya, Malaysia, China, New Zealand, Trinidad and Tobago, Czechia, Bolivia, Australia, Costa Rica, the Bahamas, Kuwait, Papua New Guinea, Bosnia, United Kingdom, and the UAE are all paying lower interest rates than the United States of America, which has one of the hottest and strongest economies in the world. The president sent this note to the Fed chair. It says, Jerome, you are as usual too late. You have cost the USA a fortune and continue to do so. You should lower the rate by a lot. Hundreds of billions of dollars are being lost, and there is no inflation. And the president is right. There is historically low inflation thanks to his policies. And we will continue to drive down the cost of living in this country for Americans. We will continue to deregulate. And it's also incredibly important that we pass this one big, beautiful bill, which is the largest tax cuts in American history. And that's why the White House and the president himself have been in touch with lawmakers all weekend long to get this bill passed. And they are working very hard to do so. It remains a top priority for the president. And this bill has exposed the clear differences between Republicans and Democrats in 2025. The Democrats are doubling down on craziness and radical policies that are undermining the very fabric of our country. Just look at the Democrat nominee for New York City Mayor, Zohran Mamdani. He's a Democrat socialist, really a communist, who proudly calls to defund the police, peddles anti-Semitism, praises pro-Hamas groups, wants Israel abolished, and believes wealthy Americans should not exist. Those are his words, just as recent as this weekend. Meanwhile, under President Trump's leadership, Republicans are fighting tirelessly for everyday middle-class working Americans who re-elected this president. And we're carrying out a revolution of common sense. And all of that is packed into this one big, beautiful bill. It delivers the largest middle and working class tax cuts in U.S. history. It keeps America safe by funding the largest ever one-time investment in border security. It's enough to reverse the Biden border invasion. And every single Democrat is against that, against securing our border and deporting millions of criminal illegal aliens. The One Big Beautiful Bill also strengthens and protects Medicaid benefits, despite what Democrats are saying, for eligible American citizens who rely on it, like pregnant women, children, seniors, and people with disabilities, by eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse that threaten to destroy this program that was intended for the most vulnerable in our society. And every single Democrat in Congress is against rooting out that waste, fraud, and abuse in blocking the 1.4 million illegal aliens who are currently improperly receiving these benefits that should be going to American tax-paying citizens. The Democrats in Congress are more concerned with defending illegal aliens than they are hardworking Americans. And the Big Beautiful Bill also revitalizes our military and enhances our defense capabilities, protects our country from emerging new threats by funding a cutting-edge missile defense system called the Golden Dome. And as we all know, the One Big Beautiful Bill makes the Trump tax cuts permanent. The White House and the president are adamant that this bill is passed and that this bill makes its way to his desk. Republicans need to stay tough and unified during the home stretch, and we are counting on them to get the job done. So with that, we will take up questions. John Fredericks is in our new media seat today. John, thanks for being here. We'll kick it to you.
Thank you, Caroline. Let's get to the One Big Beautiful Bill first. It appears now you're going to get at least 50 votes in the Senate. There'll be some amendments. What is the president's confidence level in getting 218 votes in the House by the end of this week in order for him to sign it on Friday?
Well, look, we are very well aware, the president is very well aware, that this bill needs to not only pass out of the Senate, but it needs to go back to the House, and we need the full weight of the Republican conference to get behind this bill, and we expect them to, and we are confident that they will. The president has been working hand in hand with Senate Majority Leader Thune and also our House Republican leader, or the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, both of whom will be at the White House today to meet with the president yet again. I believe they were here this morning, actually.
I have one follow-up.
Sure.
You outlined Jerome Powell and the note that the president just sent to him. There are many who believe that Powell has been politicized in a lot of different ways. The president has not been shy about acting on things that he believes in. Why not just fire Jerome Powell and put in somebody that is going to lower rates? Why wait?
Well, it's a good question, and one you can ask the president, because that's a decision for him to make. But you're right to point out the politicization of the Fed, and it's very unfortunate for our country. But Jerome Powell cut rates numerous times ahead of the election when Joe Biden was in this Oval Office, but now he refuses to, and the economy is in a much better place. So there really isn't a good explanation for that, and the president is rightfully calling attention to it.
Thank you.
Kelly.
Good afternoon. On Iran, the president posted on his social that he is not even talking to them anymore. When we were at NATO, he said he expected the U.S. and Iran to have talks as early as this week, and that he might even want to see a written agreement. What is the update now if he's saying he's not even talking?
So as I told you from the podium last week, I said the administration, and namely our special envoy Steve Witkoff, has been in communication both directly and indirectly with the Iranians. That communication continues. The president himself has not talked to Iran, which he pointed out in his truth statement. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. Does President Trump want Zoran Mamdani deported?
I haven't heard him say that. I haven't heard him call for that. But certainly he does not want this individual to be elected. I was just speaking to him about it and his radical policies that will completely crush New York City, which is obviously a city that the president holds near and dear to his heart.
There's this Congressman, Andy Ogles. He wants the Attorney General Bondi to explore denaturalization proceedings because he thinks Mamdani could have misrepresented or concealed material support for terrorism based on rap lyrics he wrote in 2017. Does President Trump think this is a worthwhile use of the Attorney General's time?
Well, I'll let the president speak to that. I have not seen those claims, but surely if they are true, it's something that should be investigated.
And could President Trump see himself, you said you just talked to him about this, could he see himself working with a mayor, Mamdani, somebody who, on Meet the Press this weekend, was given 3 chances to condemn the phrase globalize the intifada, but he couldn't?
Yeah, look, the president is always willing to work with everyone. He's working with Democrats across the country, Democrat governors, and he said he'll work with people on the far left. He works with Republicans. He works with people in the middle. He wants to do what's right for America, but surely someone who holds these values and is quite literally a communist and condemns every value that makes this country great. Common sense, law and order, low taxes, working hard, and earning your keep in this country. He's against all of that, and I think the president would find it difficult to work with someone like that. If he is elected, I'm sure you'll hear more from the president on that, but we'll have to see. Hopefully the voters of New York City choose wisely. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. The president on Friday said that he was hopeful of a Gaza deal within the next week. Can you give us an update on any progress towards that, and on any talks that the White House is having with Israel on that?
Sure. Well, I know that Mr. Dermer is in Washington this week to meet with senior officials here at the White House. I also know that this administration is in constant communication with Israeli leadership, and the president himself speaks frequently, as you know, to Prime Minister Netanyahu. But this has been a priority for the president since he took office, to end this brutal war in Gaza. It is because of this president that humanitarian aid is being brought into the region. It's heartbreaking to see the images that have come out from both Israel and Gaza throughout this war, and the president wants to see it end. He wants to save lives. And however, the main priority for the president also remains to bring all of the hostages home out of Gaza. As you know, his tireless effort has brought home many of the hostages, including all of the American hostages who were held there. So he wants to see both things happen, and we're continuing to work very hard to do those things. Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. What is the White House's response to Senator Tillis's criticism articulated from the Senate floor yesterday, in which he said passing the big, beautiful bill would betray President Trump's promise to protect Medicaid?
Well, he is just wrong. And the president and the vast majority of Republicans who are supportive of this legislation are right. This bill protects Medicaid, as I laid out for you, for those who truly deserve this program, the needy, pregnant women, children, sick Americans who physically cannot work. And what it does is it ensures that able-bodied Americans who can work 20 hours a week are actually doing so, and that will therefore strengthen and protect those benefits for Americans Americans who need it, as well as cutting out the waste, fraud, and abuse, as well as getting 1.4 million illegal aliens off of the program. So all of those measures are actually going to protect it for those who need it. That's the president's position, and that's what this bill does, and that's why Republicans need to vote for it and get it to the president's desk.
That kind of criticism from a Republican senator, is that reason for concern for the passage of this?
No, it's not. We're confident this bill is going to be back at the White House by the 4th of July. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. On the New York mayoral race, does the president plan to make an endorsement? And secondly, on Jerome Powell, a lot of the focus obviously has been on interest rates and him keeping them high, but a new controversy erupted today. My colleague first reported that he's facing Chairman Jerome Powell is facing accusations of lying to Congress, which is a potential crime, about luxurious details of the Fed's $2.5 billion renovation project. Senator Loomis has called attention to this. Some experts want him to be investigated. Does the White House want these allegations investigated and, if found substantiated, punished?
I'll have to take a look at those allegations, and I will raise them to the president's attention and let him speak on them himself. To your first question regarding the mayoral race, the president was asked that yesterday by Maria Bartiromo. He refused to give an endorsement, so you won't get one from me at this podium unless he wants me to do that. Philip, go ahead.
Oh,
sure. And then I can go to you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. The president said that he's working on a temporary pause for immigration enforcement in certain industries. I'm wondering what you can tell us about how he's determining which industries are deserving of a pass. He mentioned farmers, but what about, say, construction workers? I mean, shouldn't there just be one standard here?
I don't have any more details to read out for you, but what I can tell you is that the White House is working closely every day with the Department of Agriculture as well as the Department of Homeland Security when it comes to workforce enforcement, worksite enforcement, and the president's focus and the focus of this administration is, of course, to remove public safety threats from the streets and to deport as many of the illegal criminals, especially the violent criminals that we know are still here because of the previous administration. So that's the main priority and the goal.
And then the president has already made cuts to the office of the Director of National Intelligence, but now Senator Tom Cotton has put forward a bill that would cut the office by another 60%. What's the president's reaction to that legislation, and is this something that he would support those additional cuts?
I don't know if the president's even aware of that legislation, but I will get you a response if he is aware and if he wants to respond to it. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. You mentioned the dangerous wildlife at the alligator Alcatraz. Is that a design feature? Why is the president going with this mega bill in such a precarious position in the Senate? And then also, can you talk about the CBO estimate that it would add about 11 million uninsured?
Well, look, when you have illegal murderers and rapists and heinous criminals in a detention facility surrounded by alligators, yes, I do think that's a deterrent for them to try to escape. We do know that some of these illegal criminals have escaped from other detention facilities, like one in New Jersey, which I know was recently reported on. So, of course, we want to keep the American people safe, and we want to remove these public safety threats from our streets, and we want to effectively detain them as best as we can. As for why the president is going, I think his trip to this detention facility actually underscores the need to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill, because we need more detention facilities across the country. The last administration let in nearly 20 million illegal people from all over the world, and this administration is focused on arresting and detaining them. But in comparison to that 20 million illegal criminal population in our country, we only have 7,000 ICE agents in the interior who are doing this very important work. And so we obviously need more personnel, we need more resources, and that's why we need to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill.
On the CBOs.
Go ahead. Yes, in the pink.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Can you please share some details of China trade deal? Has the U.S. agreed to ease some export, technology export restrictions?
Sure. Well, the final language that was agreed upon in both Geneva and in London was signed just past week. We can get you that final text of the agreement. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline.
Eamon, and then behind you.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. So on Jay Powell, has the president got a short list of who he wants to see as Jay Powell's successor, and is he going to name a successor as early as this summer?
I won't get ahead of the president on any announcements on that.
Does he like Scott Besson for the job?
Again, I won't get ahead of the president.
And on TikTok, if you could, real quick, he said yesterday he's got a buyer, but the question there is, does he have a seller? And do you have any indication from the Chinese government that they've authorized a sale of TikTok to the U.S. or to U.S. buyers?
What I can tell you is that these discussions with China regarding the sale of TikTok have been ongoing at the highest level, and they will continue. As you know, we have another 90-day extension, and it's just to continue to work out this deal and make sure that TikTok stays on for the American people. That's the president's main goal in this, while protecting their privacy and their security. Behind you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. The president has been calling for a deal in Gaza for 2 days and many posts. Who is blocking the deal? And one other thing, when he posted on Netanyahu's trial, also he said it interferes with the negotiations on Iran and on Gaza. What did he mean by that?
I'm sorry, to your second question?
When he posted about the Israeli Prime Minister trial,
Yes.
he said it interferes with the negotiations on Gaza and on Iran. What did he mean by that?
It interferes because it physically and logistically was interfering. The Prime Minister was slated to go to court last week when he's in the middle of negotiating a peace deal and bringing hostages out of a war-torn region. And so the President was simply, I think, emphasizing his empathy that he has for Bibi Netanyahu and seeing him go what he's going through with his own judicial system in the state of Israel. Clearly, the President knows that very well. He, too, was a victim of a judicial system that was trying to put him in jail, as you all know. You all covered it. But President Trump prevailed. That's why he's back in the Oval Office, and he believes that Bibi Netanyahu is a great leader for the people of Israel. The President just worked with him closely to end that 12-day war and to obliterate Iran's nuclear facility, to take out that imminent threat, not just to the state of Israel, but also to the United States of America and the rest of the world. And he believes that Prime Minister Netanyahu should be praised for that. Go ahead.
Ms. Caroline, on the mega bill and the amendment that would limit Medicaid expansion under the Affordable Care Act, does the president want that amendment to pass?
The president wants this bill to pass. Meredith.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. On trade, we have this looming July 9th deadline coming up. We heard the Treasury Secretary say that he expects to wrap up these trade deals by Labor Day, but when President Trump was asked yesterday about any extensions by July 9th, he said, I don't think that would be necessary. So is the president ruling out any extensions on trade for any nations, even if they're negotiating in good faith?
Well, you heard from him directly. He said he did not think that it would be necessary. He is going to set the rates for many of these countries if they don't come to the table to negotiate in good faith. And he is meeting with his trade team this week to do that. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I just watched a CNN segment on a new app called Ice Block, and it kind of appeared to be promoting this app where you can tell people where ICE agents are. Given the recent rise...
An app that tells people where ICE agents are?
Yes. And given the rise, I believe, 500% increase in assaults on ICE agents, I wanted to see if you could comment on that and why CNN would be promoting such an app.
Well, it's a very good question. I'll have to go back and watch the clip myself, but surely it sounds like this would be an incitement of further violence against our ICE officers. As you know, as you stated, there's been a 500% increase in violence against ICE agents, law enforcement officers across the country who are just simply trying to do their jobs and remove public safety threats from our communities. And that's something we as Americans, including journalists at CNN who live in many of these cities where illegal aliens are hiding and were let in from the previous administration, should be very grateful for. So we haven't seen the clip. We'll take a look at it, but certainly it's unacceptable that a major network would promote such an app that is encouraging violence against law enforcement officers who are trying to keep our country safe.
Caroline,
Shelby.
I just wanted to get a clarification on the Senator Rick Scott's amendment. It sounds like the president is agnostic about whether it's attached. Is that accurate?
Look, I'm not going to get into the details of the discussions that are ongoing right now, but the president wants these senators to come to a conclusion, to get this bill back to the White House as soon as possible and make sure that it's a piece of legislation that can make its way back through the House as well. So obviously there's some ping-ponging between both sides of Capitol Hill right now, but that's why Senator Thune and Speaker Johnson are working with the president in lockstep every step of the way. In the back, News Nation, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. The president did
and then in front of you, yes.
In front of
Sure, I'll take both of you.
The president did announce last week that the trade deal with India is closed,
and this could happen anytime soon. Are there any roadblocks as of now? Are there any updates on that? And how does the president see this about China's role or its influence in the Indo-Pacific region?
Sure, yes. The president said that last week, and it remains true. I actually just spoke to our Secretary of Commerce about it. He was in the Oval Office with the president. They are finalizing these agreements, and you'll hear from the president and his team, his trade team, very soon when it comes to India.
And on China? How do we counter China on that front?
Yes, I mean, look, India remains a very strategic ally in the Asia Pacific, and the president has a very good relationship with Prime Minister Modi, as you know, and he will continue to have that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. On the reconciliation bill, Senator Tillis from the floor yesterday seemed to suggest President Trump was getting bad counsel on the effects of the bill. Is President Trump aware of the analyses, and there are several of these, that suggest if rural hospitals potentially close, if there are Medicaid patients in the millions that become ineligible for that?
Yes, and that claim is just simply untrue. Rural hospitals comprise 7% of all hospital spending on Medicaid, and that illustrates that they have not benefited from the massive increase of waste, fraud, and abuse under the Biden administration. So this bill strengthens Medicaid. It will protect those benefits that hardworking Americans need, and that's why the president wants this bill to pass. The senator was wrong. The president put out a Truth Social post addressing it, and then the senator announced he's no longer running for office anymore. So I think that case has been closed, and the White House is continuing to focus on getting this legislation to the president's desk for his signature. Go ahead. Yes, you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, you and then you. There's confusion here.
A question on Syria.
Go ahead.
Has the Syrian government get back to you that they are ready to join the Abraham Accord? Is there any discussion with the Syrian and Israeli government for having a security agreement? Is the first question. And the second question, what's the end goal for talking with the Iranian? Is that only focused on the nuclear program, or you are willing to speak about the other issues like the proxy groups and ballistic missiles, or even trade with Iran?
So as for discussions between Syria and Israel, you'll have to reach out to those respective governments. I can't comment on that. But what I can tell you is that this afternoon, the president will be signing an executive order to terminate the United States sanctions program on Syria. And this is in an effort to promote and support the country's path to stability and peace. The order will remove sanctions on Syria while maintaining sanctions on the former President Assad, his associates, human rights abusers, drug traffickers, persons linked to chemical weapons activities, ISIS and their affiliates, and Iranian proxies. And this is, again, an action that the president promised and shocked the world with in Saudi Arabia, because he's committed to supporting a Syria that is stable, unified, and at peace with itself and its neighbors. The president met with Syria's new president when we were in the Middle East, as you know, and so this is another promise made and promise kept by this president to promote peace and stability in the region. Go ahead, Iris.
Sure. Questions on two topics, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Iris Town with NTD here. First on Canada. Canada says it's now dropping its digital services tax on American tech companies days after President Trump says he's halting all trade talks with Canada. First, what's the president's reaction to this? Can you tell us more about his call with Prime Minister Carney over the weekend? How did he get Carney to drop it? And also, what's the impact on American tech companies given this latest progress, as the president says he has been fighting for American tech companies?
It's very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America. And President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax. That would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The president made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the president last night to let the president know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
And on Harvard, if you don't mind, the administration today formally accused Harvard of violating civil rights laws by not doing enough to fight anti-Semitism. We know that the president has talked to us before about Harvard potentially having a deal with the administration in the coming days. Do you have an updated timeline for that? How's the negotiations going? And is more pressure needed for Harvard to take fighting anti-Semitism seriously?
Well, there was quite a direct letter that was sent to Harvard this morning, as you know. The negotiations are taking place behind closed doors, so I won't comment on that. But what I will share with all of you, for those who haven't seen it, is the context of this letter, because I think it's very important. And this comes from the Department of Health and Human Services, which concluded after a thorough investigation that Harvard University is in a violent violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin. And if you read some of the content of the investigation and what they found, the majority of Jewish students reportedly experienced negative bias or discrimination on their campus, while a quarter of Jewish students at Harvard felt physically unsafe. Jewish and Israeli students were assaulted and spit on. They hid their kippahs for fear of being harassed and concealed their Jewish identity from classmates for fear of ostracization. Images were widely circulated amongst the Harvard community that trafficked in obvious anti-Semitic tropes, including one that showed a $sign inside of a Star of David, and the campus was vandalized with anti-Semitic stickers, including one that showed the Israeli flag with a swastika. The Harvard campus was racked by demonstrations, as you all know, violent protests that violated the university's rules of conduct. The demonstrations called for genocide and murder, denied Jewish and Israeli students access to campus spaces. These are all facts that Harvard cannot dispute, and that's why the administration has found them in violation of Title VI and has threatened to withhold their federal funding, because if you break federal law, you should not be receiving federal tax dollars. And so I rest my case on Harvard. Andrea.
Yeah, so President Macron of France earlier today said that tariffs levied by powerful countries are often a form of blackmail, and criticized the sort of process that's underway. Didn't mention the United States specifically, but said that these tariffs are really hurting developing countries. So there's this big UN conference going on. What do you say to that? What is the president, was he aware of that comment, and do you have any response?
I think the president and the White House would certainly reject that characterization by Prime Minister Macron. Tariffs are an effective use of presidential power to bring back the middle class, to bring back our manufacturing industry, which was the backbone of our American economy and has been hollowed out by globalist politicians who have caved to foreign countries instead of doing what's right for American workers. That's why the president is effectively utilizing his authority to wage tariffs and to utilize tariffs, and continues to be in discussions and negotiations on trade to do what's right for America. And Europe and the rest of the world might not be used to that, but President Trump is back in town, and he's going to do what's right for our people and our country.
Can I just follow up on Netanyahu? So there's a report in Israeli media that the Prime Minister will actually be here, that Netanyahu will be here today meeting with the President. Can you confirm that?
I don't believe Prime Minister Netanyahu is here today. I think you guys would know about that by now. Unless there's something going on I don't know about, but I don't believe he is. I do know he has expressed interest in coming to Washington and meeting with the President, and we are working on a date for that. I do not believe it is today, but that would be fun. You never know in this White House, let's be honest. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Does the President support this new measure in the big, beautiful bill that would impose steep new taxes on new wind and solar projects?
I believe you're referring to the credits for wind and solar projects.
No,
and what?
We're talking about the new tax. There's a new tax that it's estimated would add 10 to 20% to the cost of any new wind and solar projects that start after this year.
Again, I don't want to comment on the specifics of provisions, but I'm sure the President will speak on that directly. Again, this is an ongoing process. The President continues to be very much engaged with the leadership in both the Senate and the House to get this bill back to his desk.
Did the President ask for that provision? Because the National Building Trades Union is saying that it's the equivalent of terminating more than 1,000 Keystone XL pipeline projects. Is that something that would concern him?
Well, the President spoke on this yesterday in his interview, and he said he understands that legislators want to protect jobs in their communities and in their districts. And so he understands why some of them are against this provision, but he also understands why people want the provision. So again, this is an ongoing deliberation and discussion, and the President is engaged in this very much. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. We've been hearing from White House officials for weeks that you're close on trade deals with a number of countries. Can we get any update on which countries will have deals by the 9th and when they're making any announcements?
I'll let the president and the trade team speak on it.
Can you respond to the CBO estimate that the Senate bill would increase the deficit by nearly $3.3 trillion?
This is one of the most fiscally conservative pieces of legislation that has ever made its way through Capitol Hill. There's $2 trillion in mandatory savings in this bill, and not only that, the projected growth that this bill will bring to our economy. It will be an economic boom. The Council of Economic Advisors has an analysis that shows that the bill will generate $4.1 trillion in economic growth, and it will cut taxes, putting more money back into the American people's pockets. That's why this president wants this bill to pass, and I know he's busy working the phones and doing what he needs to do today to make it happen. So we'll see you all later. Thank you. We'll see you in Florida tomorrow.
Thank you.
And Karoline Leavitt at the podium, James S. Brady briefing room in Washington, D.C., doing an excellent job detailing everything moving along with the One Big Beautiful Bill and other updates, including trade to conflicts that were stopped by President Trump overseas, including all the updates with Israel and Iran and the potential of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to visit the White House once again. Among many other issues that are facing the administration right now, we know that President Trump will be heading to Florida, the Sunshine State, the free state of Florida, to join members in the cabinet, border czar Tom Homan, also Governor Ron DeSantis in the Everglades for that new facility for detaining illegal immigrants. And as Karoline put up there with that list that was signed by President Trump, we actually have a recent truth from roughly 45 minutes ago from President Trump. Jerome Too Late Powell and his entire board should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen to the United States. They have one of the easiest yet most prestigious jobs in America. They have failed and continue to do so. If they were doing their job properly, our country would be saving trillions of dollars in interest costs. The board just sits there and watches it. So they are equally to blame. We should be paying 1% interest or better. And then there's an entire list of the world central banks rates, and Switzerland at the top, 0.25%. I mean, even going all the way down to the Republic of Congo, around the 4.5%. But something that needs to be considered, of course, our friend John Fredericks in the new media seat today. He has a wonderful radio show detailing so many of these different issues facing you, the American people, asking that. Where will the president go with this? We'll have yet to wait what will happen in potential termination of Jerome Powell, or we'll see how these things go. But we know President Trump and Jerome Powell do not see eye to eye on those rates, and President Trump has an extraordinary business background that can solve this problem immediately and is willing, ready, able to work with everyone, including the thoughts of potentially having a communist mayor in New York City. That's a scary thought, but that's why you have to get involved at the grassroots level to make sure America is safe and stronger than ever before. And we've seen that great success, the 20 promises made and kept, coming from that White House. Thank you to our sponsors, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Trade on the most important events facing you and your family, domestically or abroad. Scan that QR code now on questions. Will inflation go up? Will egg prices continue to go down? What will happen with One Big Beautiful Bill? With the LA Dodgers, will they repeat their championship as the Florida Panthers did in hockey? We'll see what happens with those schedules. Thank you to Kalshi.com/RSBN and allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Pay less for your prescription medications now through today. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Scan that QR code now or go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for hydrochloroquine, ivermectin, methylene blue, mebendazole, NAD+, life-saving medications, over 200 in fact, including emergency medical kits and antibiotics to protect you and yours. Pay less for prescription medications. 20% off, code RSBN20 right now. And with the COVID variant out there and the storms in life, literally and figuratively speaking, you cannot afford to not have your medicine cabinet stocked. You can't afford to not take these great medications with you on the road. This organization of doctors, nurses, and pharmacists pushing back against insurance companies that sometimes own the pharmacies and have special interests involved. It's a conflict of interest. There's no question about that. So let's cut the red tape. Let's cut the bureaucracy. If you don't have insurance, don't worry. You just need a prescription. Reach out to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Let's make America healthy again. And if you like what you see in this live desk and all of the excitement that is part of this week in, week out of covering the 47th president, the 50th vice president, the 119th Congress, and those stories that affect you inside and outside of the Beltway. Please feel free to donate. rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 855-575-7888. That is 855-575-7888. Simply text RSBN there, or again, visit our website, rsbnetwork.com/donate. For not only the broadcast, but also the written word, the hardworking people who are contributing here to the network, and also our producers, directors, and yours truly, Matthew Alvarez, Christina Loren, also Megan Kohler at the network, bringing you unbridled access to everything inside and outside of the Beltway. Get all those America First updates and exclusive offers as well at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. There you can subscribe, get all of the updates on big things, including a Sunday devotional, which is lovely to read in the morning before you head off to church, including all of the big issues facing this administration and the issues you care most about at home. So rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. It's about 2 o'clock on the East Coast, 11 o'clock on the West Coast. Good afternoon, and still a good morning to our friends on the West Coast. I'm Robert McNeely. That's all the news we have for you today. Unless it's breaking, we'll be right back here with you tomorrow for access to your government, the federal city, inside and outside of the Beltway. And stick with us this week as we celebrate America 250, really the kickoff with the 249th birthday celebration of the United States, the 4th of July. This Thursday, July 3rd, President Trump will be in Iowa. Yours truly with Christina Loren, bringing you unbridled access to the Iowa State Fairgrounds. It's going to be a fun time this summer, and very happy it's the summer months in Iowa versus January in Iowa. Been there a time or two for a caucus or two, and it is cold that time of year. So we hope you tune in later on this week as well. For all of my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, the live desk, bringing you unbridled access to your government, I'm Robert McNeely. Have a wonderful afternoon and a fantastic Monday. God bless.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.